Welcome back to another innovation review. Today, we're going to be checking out the G205 from Polarna. Before we dive into all the specifications, I just want to let you know up front, I'm going to be changing the format of the review just a little bit. What we're going to be doing is talking about the specifications right here. Then we're going to get some B-roll, head back to the studio, and I'm going to talk over some of that before we get to the ride test. I still want to keep the ride test raw so you guys can get the real experience of what riding this bike feels like. Before the overview portion, we're going to take that to the studio, make it a little bit more polished, and I hope you guys enjoy it. If you guys have any feedback or comments about it, please let me know. So without further ado, let's dive into the specs. Before we dive into the nuts and bolts, let's talk about the looks of this bike. It's got this thick, rugged, fairly sturdy look to it. Everything's a little bit bigger, a little bit beefier. We've got this nice thick rack in the back and those nice 4-inch tires. Just kind of gives the bike an overall mean machine sort of look. Now let's talk about that rear hub 750 watt motor. With the 750 watts, it's going to be street legal in most places. You got to double check, with your local rules and regulations. But for us in Texas, this was not an issue. It does look pretty cool. Got this sleek look kind of integrated into the rims here. When compared with some of the other 750 watt motors we've tested, I don't think this was the most powerful. Maybe that's something we can adjust in the settings, but right out of the box, it didn't feel like it was really giving me that full power that I know the 750 watt motors should be capable of. Next, let's talk about the battery. We do have this 48 volt, 14 amp hour, which is a pretty big capacity for some of these bikes, especially around this price point. We've seen some up to 17, but sometimes you'll get some that are like 10 or 12 or a range in between. So having a 14 amp hour battery, I feel like was kind of the right move here. It is a bit of a heavier bike. It's got 672 watt hours. One of the nice things about this battery is it is lockable and removable, so you can put it in this down tube here. You can fold the bike back up, you can lock it in there. Nobody's going to mess with it at that point. And if you want to remove it to charge inside, you can do that as well. You can also charge it right in the bike by using this charging port here. Now, one of the things to note about this charging port, and this goes for pretty much most of the batteries that we've seen with this style, you're going to want to make sure to check that little plug there at the end. So if you don't take it out before you pull the plug out, what you're going to do is you're going to be pulling that, because that's actually inserted into the battery, so you're going to be pulling that through the frame. Just something to watch out for. And then if you leave it plugged in, you go to put the battery in, sometimes those can get caught and you can pinch that rubber together. Something you can kind of adjust a little bit, but it may make it harder for it to fit back into the charging port as it's intended. Now let's talk about the hydraulic disc brakes. These are Logan hydraulic disc brakes, and I haven't seen this brand before. We've dealt with a few different brands, and this is my first time seeing them. From a usability standpoint, they work really well. Normally with e-bikes, especially stuff that gets shipped, things get knocked around. Brakes is usually one of the things you have to adjust, but for me with this model, right out of the box, the brakes were set up pretty good and we were ready to roll. From a comfortable standpoint, these were really nice. I liked them. They fit in my hand really well. Now, one of the things we had with one of the bikes that we'd reviewed in the past is that they had these bolts down here. You can see I was checking that to make sure that I wasn't going to hit anything or there wasn't going to be any rubbing. The way that these are designed, there's nothing that sticks out, so nothing was catching my fingers or anything. So that's definitely a plus for these ones. And then both of the disc brakes that we have here are 160 millimeters. We measured those both in the front and in the rear. And again, those were right out of the box, ready to roll. Next, let's talk about the gears. So for our shifting lever here, we've got this Shimano, and we've seen Shimano on a lot of bikes. We like to see Shimano, no real complaints here. At first glance, it looks like there is kind of a lot going on here on the right side. But the way that they design it, the way that they have this configured, I didn't feel like there was any hindrance on my hand getting in here and moving the levers like I needed to. And these shifters are connected up here to this Shimano Acera derailleur here in the back. Again, Shimano, we like to see the name brand stuff here. And one of the cool things about this setup is that it does come with this derailleur guard. Now, the derailleur guard was already installed when I got it. You know, with some bikes, you'll have to install it yourself. Not really a pro or con either way, just something to note. And up here, we don't have too much of a chain guard, but we do get a little bit of protection. We got this nice little bit of aluminum sticking out here. So that should give us at least some protection when, we bump into those things. And right here, we've got these 160mm cranks. These ones are unbranded, but they do match the bike really well. And we have these Well-Go folding pedals, and they are easy enough to fold up with just one hand. Now let's talk about some of the features that come stock on this bike. The first and most notable is probably going to be this rear rack. It is bigger, it's beefier, it's got a really nice look to it. I've seen similar ones on different bikes, and I've always been a big fan of this style. Compared to at least some of the other, thinner style racks, I like the way this one looks better. And this comes pre-installed on the bike, so nothing you got to do here. Next, let's talk about the fenders. Now, the fenders we have here are these metal fenders. Maybe we'd like to see some that are a little bit more plastic or, a different type of material. However, they are big, they are wide, and they do protrude out in the front and in the back, enough to catch any sort of mud or spray. We took this bike out when it had just been raining, so there's like some mud that was flinging everywhere, and none of it really got on me, and I feel like these fenders did a really good job of fendering. And of course, we've got our front light here. I'm not positive exactly how many lumens it is. My best guess is probably going to be right around that 250, just compared to some of the 250s we've tested in the past. Beam-wise, it was pretty circular. We've seen some that are a little bit flatter and wider. This one seemed to be pretty cylindrical. In the back, we've got this rear tail light. Now, one of the cool things here is it is integrated into the rack, and it also is going to respond to our brakes. So if we pull our brake levers, it's going to flash. Every time you pull down the brake, it will flash. If you hold down the brakes, it'll stay on for quite a while. And then up front, kind of hidden underneath our throttle here, is going to be a horn. And we have this USB port here on the back of our display. Now, this is in the form of a dongle. Probably want to look at maybe attaching that using some Velcro or some other means to keep that, next to the bike so it's not flapping around. But if it's something you hate and you don't want a USB port, you can always actually just unplug it. It's a little plug and play right here, but it's probably not recommended. However, if you do decide to go that route, I would just make sure that this is plugged up so no water can get in here. The bike also comes with 2 keys and this 2-amp charger. Now, one of the things I thought was really cool about this 2-amp charger was the look to it. Probably one of the nicest looking chargers that we've received on any of the bikes we've tested. And of course, we've got all of the tools to put it together. Also comes with a user manual. One of the little gems I found was this little reversible screw. It goes from a Phillips to a flathead. It's not the highest quality, but it's a cool little tool and definitely going to find a spot in my bag for sure. Next, let's talk about the folding. With this bike, all of the folding joints seem to be a little bit harder to move than most of the folding joints that we've done in the past. Now, it's probably the direction you want to go as opposed to like it being too loose, like the bike just kind of flies apart. So there's a little bit of effort you got to put in here. I don't know if that's a pro or a con, just something to keep in mind if your unit is a little tight there. I also like the way that the front stem folds down. It has this little bit of like an insert clamp deal on the front here, which I think is a little bit safer and definitely looks cooler when compared to, some of the old school, tighten the knob and, bring the quick release down. So I like this. I think it's a nice slick look. And again, probably a little bit safer. The folding mechanism here in the middle, again, a little bit harder to fold once you actually get this bike undone. One of the things I had to do out of the box was tighten down that top little safety latch just a little bit. It was a little bit loose for my taste. Something we could see is maybe adding a spring or maybe just making sure these were a little bit tighter when they get out of the box. Not a huge deal as the amount of force that you have to apply to open up the main latch is quite a bit, so probably not something, even if that latch were to, say, go up or stay up or something like that, it would probably be difficult for the bike to just fly apart on you. When folded, the dimensions are 39 by 30 by 21, a little bit bigger of a folded bike, and we've got this nice little stand at the bottom to make sure nothing is touching the ground that shouldn't be. Yo, Mitch, how does it ride? You're probably asking about the suspension here. Let me tell you about that. So the suspension here, we've got this dual suspension system, and we've got this quick adjust suspension up here in the front, which is nice to see the inclusion again of that, quick adjustment. And then in the back, we have got this HLT 100 rear suspension. Now, we've seen this on pretty much every bike that has dual suspension, so it's pretty much a staple in the old dual suspension game. So no complaints here. Does what we need it to do. And just below that, we've got these Chow Yang 20 by 4 inch wheels. Now, these ones have what they call dyno skin, so it's puncture protection. We've got 3 millimeters of puncture protection here. No sidewall stripes, looking at it from a nighttime safety perspective, but having the puncture protection here is awesome. The max PSI here is going to be 20 PSI, or 1.4 bar, and just regular Schrader valves on these ones. Next, let's talk about butt suspension, or the saddle. Now with this saddle, it's very plain Jane, it's unbranded, it's very just kind of that typical saddle that you think of when you would think about, a bike seat. And not much to say about it, didn't cause me any discomfort as I was riding it around, did the job, so no complaints there. Next, let's talk about the controls. Now the display here is going to show us a couple of different things. It's going to tell us, our battery level, how fast we're going, the watts that we're pulling, what mode we're in, level of pedal assist. It's also going to tell us what our total odometer is and what our trip distance is. Now you can use the up button over here on the left to raise pedal assist levels. Now out of the box, it comes with 5 levels of pedal assist, and that's something you can change in the advanced settings menu. Now if we hit this I button here, it will change what is being displayed over here on the right hand side. So it'll tell us our max miles per hour, it'll tell us our average miles per hour, and it will take us back to the amount of time we've been riding for this time, and it'll show us again back to that, total odometer here.
Wait, what did you call it?
Now to turn the lights, we're going to press and hold down on the light button over here on the left-hand side, and you'll see the screen will dim a little bit, and then the light icon will be displayed right here at the top. Now to get into the advanced settings, we're going to press and hold down on those plus and minus buttons, and that's what's going to take us into the settings. We've got things like trip reset, toggle unit, LCD luminance, things like that. And then right underneath that, we've got our advanced settings. We can change the wheel size, top speed limit, what mode we're in, and it's got eco, normal, and sport. We can change up quite a few things down here, turn cruise control on or off. And these are just things that you're going to want to, get in there and probably mess around with pretty delicately. Some of these numbers like speed sensor, assistant number, you might not want to mess around with those too much unless you know what you're doing. But that's how you get in there to change any of that stuff if you want to. So that pretty much covers it from the overview perspective. Now we're going to send it out to Mitch for the ride test. All right, guys, we are outside for the ride test. That's what I just said. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah, you already know what we're doing. So we're going to start out with no pedal assist on here. We're just going to test this bike out in bike mode, if you will. We've got it in our first gear over here, and we're just going to go through the gears and see what the shifting feels like. To second. And third. All the shifting here is fairly smooth. It's not perfectly seamless, but it is not bad. Sixth. And so seventh is a little rough. And eighth. Looks like we hit the eighth there. And that's something we can go through and adjust. But right out the box, it works fine. There's a couple little skips and a little bit of hard shifting there, but that is not too bad. All right, let's go ahead and turn it around. And let's test out pedal assist. So we'll go in at pedal assist level 1. Now this thing does have 5 levels of pedal assist here, but you can go in and you can change that if you want to. About 3/4 of rotation here. And that's gonna get us right there to about 14 miles an hour. Now, one of the things I like about this display, and we've seen it on a few different models, is it does show us the watts that we're using. And that's nice, so you can look at battery consumption and, just kind of shows us how efficient this motor's being. Go ahead and kick it up into second level pedal assist. Gets us there right to 15, 16 miles an hour, and tells us level 3. About 21, tells us level 4. Gets up to about 23. Did I just say that? Let's see, tells us level 5. And that's going to take us up to that, right up to that 20 miles per hour, which is the class 3 cutoff for most places. So we're able to get up to 28 miles per hour with the pedal assist. That is pretty sweet. Let's go ahead and try out just the throttle on this. Got the throttle over here on the left side. Let's go ahead and try that out. So again, it's gonna take us to that 14, 15 miles an hour. Now, one of the things about this one, when compared to some of the other ones, is our pedal assist level is gonna dictate how fast we can go with the throttle. So you see I'm holding this down. And a cool feature on here, as we're here, is you can let this go and you can do cruise control. Nope, I guess I turned it off. You can do cruise control. And it works if you don't turn it off. So our pedal assist level 3. Again, we're using just the throttle, going about 21, 22. So go ahead and hit pedal assist level 4. Gets it just right around that 23. And pedal assist level 5. That's going to take us to 26, 26, 27, right around there. So normally with these throttles, they will cut off around that 20 mile an hour mark. To keep it in that, class 3 territory. So it looks like the throttle's going to let us go a little bit faster than that, which is no complaint. For me, being in Texas, we're pretty loosey-goosey with all of the regulations and whatnot. But if you're in a place that's a little bit more strict, just something to, be aware of. And I'm sure you can pop in there the settings and you can make this, conform to whatever your local regulations say. Now we're out here in some mud. Let's go ahead and see what this mud's all about. Bring a little bit of slipping and sliding going on. Now, one of the things I like about this setup is we do have, the fender up there in the front and the fender in the back, which is nice. And even though, we're getting all this mud, most of the mud is going just on the bottom of the bike, and those fenders are doing a really good job of keeping it off me. I don't have anything on me at this point. So that's nice. You'll see some of those fenders, they don't really do the job, and you'll wish they were just a little bit wider or just a little bit longer. I feel like these really do have some pretty good coverage. And so far I've been dry. No mud on me at this point. Just cruising along here. Now, one of the things I'd like to note is the battery percentage on here. It is predictive. Okay, so what that means is basically it will let you know, like, hey, if you're gonna go down this road, you're gonna, kind of continue as is, this is what percentage of battery you have left. And you notice, like, if I take, the cruise control is working right there. So we, come to a stop, we kind of hang out, and you'll see that battery percentage start to change, and it's like, oh, okay. So if we put it down and say pedal assist level 1, I just want to do a little bit of pedaling at this point. You'll notice that battery indicator is going to go up. So I went from 33 back up to, let's go to 40, 41. I think when we started it was about 60-ish, something like that. So it's just predictive, letting you know, like, hey, if you continue to do this thing, this is how much battery you got left. So not a true indicator of the battery that's left. So if you're, down there and you see something like, 2%, 5%, that's probably not actually what the battery is, unless you just turned it on and it's sitting there. It's just predicting a little bit there for you. So I'm gonna pop up here. Go ahead and get on this bike trail over here and see what we can hit as far as speed on this goes. Now, one thing to note here about this motor, which is a little bit different than some of the other ones that we've had in the past. When you're walking the bike, you can actually hear the motor when it's off. So you can kind of hear the motor gears, I guess, spinning even when, you know, the motor's not on. And I don't know if that's a really good explanation, so I'll just pop off and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So go ahead and turn the bike off. Now with most bikes, you know, again, you kind of got this free wheel situation, so you're just kind of cruising. But with this one, you can hear the motor. You can hear that motor down there. So that's interesting. It is a little bit louder than some of the other bikes that we've been on. So just something to note, you know, if you're expecting to have something, you know, pretty quiet, like some of the other maybe more expensive bikes, you're not going to get that with this bike. Now, as far as the power goes, you know, this compared to some of the other 750 watt bikes that we've been on, I feel like it's okay when compared to some of those. We've been on some, say we were on the Neza F1 a while back. I feel like the power on that was pretty good. And even if you had some of the other bikes, some of the bigger, beefier mountain bikes, like the Walkie X3 Pro or that Cyrusher review that we did recently, all of those, they had a little bit more get up and go to it than this one does. Now, as far as the shocks go, we haven't adjusted anything on this bike whatsoever. Normally with an electric bike, you have got to adjust. Usually the brakes are kind of a little bit out of whack. These ones were not. Right out of the gate, we didn't have any sort of rubbing or anything like that. And then the other thing we can adjust is the shocks on here. So we've got these dual front forks here in the front, and then we've got that rear shock here in the back. Now, the one in the back, I'm pretty sure you can get in there, and I think it's a little bit more technical to adjust that. Now, the ones up top, we've got these nice little latches right here on top to make some adjustments if we want to. But we are just using it, you know, as it came right out of the box, just to get a good feel for what the company was trying to do with the bike. And that's nice. Now, one of the things that I would suggest, you know, adjusting, if all of those things have checked out on your particular model as they've checked out on ours, is just look at that shifting. So it looks like the shifting's a little bit rough. But again, that's, you know, it's a pretty easy adjustment. I am not an expert on shifting adjustments. However, I also understand it's not, you know, a terribly complicated thing to pop in there and adjust if you know what you're doing. And so now the cruise control's working. I'm not touching it. Now we do get a little bit of road noise from these tires. You know, we've seen a lot of these bigger, you know, 4-inch tires where they will make a little bit more noise when compared to some of the other sleeker tires. So that is covering up a little bit of the motor noise. However, the motor, it is a little bit louder. So if you're, like I said, if you're something that's a little bit quieter, you're expecting something a little bit quieter, that's not what this bike is about. And you know what? So I've been going this way and I was thinking, oh, I'm just gonna turn around here in a minute. But I'm already out, I'm already about. There's this mountain bike park here, just down the way a little bit. And I was like, you know what, let's go put this thing to the test. We might not take any jumps, but maybe we can hit some good hills and some bumps and see how everything handles. Now, it is a little bit muddy out here, so I'm not sure if this is the best idea, but we're gonna do it anyway. So let's head over there and see, see what this thing can do. All right, okay, all right. That was fun. me, it handled itself pretty good. I mean, this hill's kind of ridiculous, and you know, you see people on these mountain bikes who are gapping this tabletop. We couldn't quite do that, but we were able to noodle around in here, get some stuff done. And that's probably about it for this bike. Let's go ahead and take it back. So it is a little bit on the heavier side, so this is not one that you would want to be pedaling predominantly with. But we got a little bit of air. We did what we needed to do back there. All right, guys, that's pretty much it for the ride test. We went through pedaling like a bike. We went through all that sort of stuff. We'll go ahead and show you that cruise control does work there. I guess there's just a couple cool little features that we can chat about on the way back. The first one is, and something I noticed last night when I turned the bike on, I was measuring it, getting some specs, making sure kind of everything was finalized before we came out here to do the review. And I turned it on, and when it was outside and it was nighttime, the lights came on automatically. Now, I'm not sure, well, at first I thought maybe it was a fluke. So I turned the lights off, then I turned the bike. It's quite a bit of motor noise we're getting back there. So I was able to turn the lights off and turn the bike off. So I was sure the lights were off at this point. I turned it back on, and the lights came back on as soon as I turned the bike on. So I don't know if there's some sort of sensor that lets the bike know when the lights should be on. I'm not sure if that's a feature they brag about, but it happened consistently. So then I checked this morning, same scenario, I turned it on, but it was light outside, lights didn't come on. I was like, huh. So I took it into a dark garage, I turned it on, lights automatically came on. So I don't know if it's a fluke. Again, it's not something they brag about, it's something I noticed. The other thing that I thought was pretty cool is we do have a horn on here. I'm not really sure what to compare that sound to. Sort of sounds like somebody's hitting a squeaky toy with like a large bat or a mallet or something like that. So not super loud. I mean, we were on one bike, what was that? The Cyrusher XF 900 had a horn on there, and where it was positioned, I kept thinking it was the up button. So I was trying to like raise pedal assist, and I would hit that horn, and it would scare me sometimes, especially when I would hit that, you know, at my house, for example. I'd be, you know, in the office, and yeah, I hit that thing, and it was super, super loud, almost like a, you know, the train horn of e-bike horns. Now, with this bike in particular, the horn's not very loud. So when you think it's good, you can probably get a hold of, like, you know, other bicyclists, maybe people walking on this trail, for example. So if I was coming up behind a group of people and they were spread out all across the trail, that would be a pretty good spot to then, you know, use that horn. I think it would be pretty effective. But as far as like communicating with cars or other vehicles like that, I'm not sure if it's quite loud enough to do that. It is nice though to see it. You know, we talk about, you know, different safety features like sidewall protective stripes with the tires, and then we also talk about you know, visibility, and then also being able to communicate with people. So if we had something that was, you know, if this came and it didn't have a horn or didn't have a bell or something like that, I would point it out. So it is nice that we have a horn. I'm just giving you my thoughts on it, you know, as a horn. The fact that it's here is awesome, but it could be louder. It could be more effective, maybe. Not that we necessarily need that, but for some people, you know, maybe they want a louder horn or something different, just something to, you know, take into consideration. One of the other things that I usually talk about is the grips on these bikes. Now these ones, they are those faux leather ergonomic style, which is super nice. I really enjoy the ergonomic style handlebars, but when these grips are like that faux leather, something to, you know, take into consideration is that they can get maybe hot, or if you know, naturally have sweaty palms, this might be something that keeps your hands hot. So for example, right now, I think it's like 65, 67, you know, overcast. So this is pretty nice. You know, I'm not sweating. My hands aren't sweating at least. So this hasn't been a big deal for me in testing it out. However, I know that if it was going to be, you know, 85, 88, 90 degrees, you know, 100% humidity, that might be something where I would notice it. I would notice like this is a little bit hot, my palms are maybe a little bit more sweaty than normal, but for weather like this, that is not really a big deal. One of the features that a lot of these electric bikes comes with are a walk mode. So with this one, unlike some of the other ones, you don't have to have the pedal assist on in order for the walk mode to engage. With some of them, you have to have it at least on one before it'll start working. So that's sort of a safety, a catch there. With this one, you don't have to have that. And we can go ahead and we can hold this down, and this will kick us off into walk mode. It goes about 3.5, 4 miles per hour. It doesn't feel terribly fast. Now with this one, it has that ability to let it go and it'll still keep going. Now what that means is that we will have to either hit the brake lever right here, like that, and that will kill it. Or you can go ahead and you can hold down that down button again, and that will cancel you out of the walk mode there.
All in all, the G205 is big, beefy, and it handled itself pretty well. With just a few tweaks, I think GDSEBIKES could really make this into something great.
Alright guys, that's going to do it for our review of the G205. If you want to know more, I'll have a link down to their website below. And if you got any questions or comments, please let us know down below. Love talking to you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.